Welcome back, cousins. You know I said I was coming back. You know I said I was coming back. Well, you know what? I want you, for the ones that's been keep coming back and not subscribing, why? Why? Why haven't you subscribed yet? You know, it's good to hop on board when somebody is little, and you can help me on through to get up, a little bigger. Okay, so I want you to hit that subscribe, like, and share. And my subscribers, hit that like and share button. Okay? Subscribe. I am Betty J. Gathers and daughter of Jean Gray. Welcome back. I got something good for you. Usually I come over here and say, have your cup of coffee, have your cup of tea, have your cup of wine. Well, today, because I have to really talk about something heavy, I had to make myself a big glass, y'all. Thank you, Z. So good. I got to really be ready for y'all today. I'm going to go back. I did a 1960s video. I grew up in 1960. And my sister told me, and she's right, that I soft pedaled through it. I didn't lie. I soft pedaled. And I don't know, it's because I'm new to YouTube or just something that you want to say suppress maybe. But I just need, like she said, to come and tell how it truly, truly was. And I'm going to do that today. I think this is going to be a 3-part. This is going to be the second part today. I'm not going to rush through it like I did. I'm not going to soft pedal it. I'm going to start. Okay. Where I'm going to start at? Exactly on December 10th, 1955. The day, the month, and the year. A little girl was trying to come into this world, and she was tussling and trying not to come out. My mom said my birth was the hardest birth she'd ever had, and maybe little Betty knew what she had to come into. When I came out, and let me back it up a little bit, I was born in my grandmother's home. It was a 2-story home, and it had a fish market right next to it. My uncle stayed right in the back of us, okay, with his family, okay? And to describe the neighborhood a little bit more than I did last time before little Betty comes out, is there was a barbecue place across from my grandma. You remember me talking about that? It was some other shops across that were all African-American owned, okay, to serve the African-American community. And there was a railroad station. Well, I was surprised that was on Tamara Avenue. I doubt if it's, but it was just a little farther. And it was still in the segregated part of West Palm Beach, okay? So let's get back to that little girl that's trying to fight into the world. And also, there was a doctor that came to attend to me. And I never asked my mom if he was white or a Negro. And I'm going to use Negro because that's what they were using at that time. So I'm going to go back to that even to that. But I'm not sure. But he came to the house because we couldn't go to the hospitals at that time to have our babies. Okay? And also, I like you to know that before the doctors started coming, they were African-American midwives that delivered our babies. And because we couldn't go anywhere else. And they did really good. Of course, we lost babies just like at the hospital. But, and really some of those doctors used some of the techniques that those midwives used. And that was, they call it greasing the baby out. They use goose grease, what they use KY gel or whatever silicone gel they use now. But they start using some of the techniques that they were doing to get those babies out. But little Betty finally comes out. She's not breathing. she's born in her sack, because my mom always talk about, you hear people talk about the veil over the face, that it came out, but I wasn't breathing. So my mom said, I'm telling you exactly what her words was, they dipped in hot water, cold water, hot water, cold water, and I finally let out that well, and she said I was bald-headed. I could always remember that. She said I was bald-headed when I came out. And I had to be a robust child because I have been that all my life. Okay? So Betty J. Gathers, was born into a segregated world. Okay? We stayed in my grandma's house for a while. I was still little, but I remember that house. My grandfather owned 2 fish markets. I only knew of one, but I learned that he had 2. Because, you know, most African Americans, they had to find a way, another way of living. Because the only thing probably, I'm not going to say probably, was being a maid, cleaning up, you know, it wasn't much else. They had to think of other things to do, you know. So thank goodness that my grandma and granddad found that. And after that, when I was about 3 or 4, we moved into my mom's new home that she got because her husband, Jay, but he was Ezekiel, but they called him Jay. He died on the power lines he was working, because the African American men, well, the Negro men, used to cut the trees back off the lines, and that was the most dangerous job. And he ended up dying on the power line. So she ended up suing the power people, Florida Power or whoever it was at that time, and that's how she got her new home. But before we moved to that home, my mom, me, and my sister, my aunt, and her children all stayed in that one house. So we really got, you know, we were close knit. All the kids would play. My Uncle Tom and his wife stayed in the back with my first cousins, also with their children. So we used to run, we knew that neighborhood. We used to run everywhere in that neighborhood. And then across the hill, still in the African American community, because we knew which borders that we could go into. Okay? The only bustling street we had in West Palm Beach was Rosemary. Anybody that's my age will know Rosemary was the place to go. Okay? The dentist was on that street. The doctors, yes, there were Negro doctors on that street. There was a movie theater that we went to a lot, a whole lot. And I can remember, because I don't want to forget this part, because I know I'm going to talk about the schools in a little bit. I can remember the school giving out us little vouchers that we could go there free to watch movies. I watched James Brown at that movie. I watched Moses at that movie. So we got all the movies that white theaters got. But that was just the bustling street of everything. That was the nightlife, as they would say, was Rosemary, because that's where we went. Also, once we moved out into Riviera Beach, was just a hop and a skip out of West Palm Beach, into our new home, and I was still little. I had to be 3 or 4. Segregated neighborhood, all Negroes. You don't see any whites at all. And as I'm growing up, you still don't, because we're like in a cocoon. It's basically what we are. The only white person, male, that I would see often at everybody's homes was a white insurance man. They were always in our neighborhood selling those penny policies. What people never got anything back on. They would come in, I remember, with that big smile on their face, and have that little book that they would get, and then the people would just give them what they needed, or some people would hide because they wouldn't have the money. But honestly, that's in my memory, maybe somebody else's. I cannot remember another white person that came into that neighborhood. Let me talk a little bit about my mom. I know this is going to be a three-parter because I'm already 10 minutes in. She was a maid. I can't remember her doing anything before that, but I know she was a maid for Miss Peace. She had 2 sons. She was married. I know one name was David. And we also, when she would go and clean and iron, we would go sometimes. And David had, or whoever the youngest was, had a little library with a lot of books. And I always loved to read. And of course, you know, I didn't have a library like that. So that was my luxury, just sitting there and reading. Oh, sitting there and reading. And then those were the only white people that I can remember that I saw as a little girl. Sometimes we would eat there, just me and my mom and my sister, and some little lunch or something. But I can remember the home. It was a nice home, and I would say big, but you know, from a child's eye, probably wasn't as big as I thought it was, but it would have been a home that I knew I would have want to live in. But they stayed in a nice section, suburbs, at that time. And then I can remember too, because my mom had a car, which was, some people it was a rarity, but a lot of people had cars. And we would drive back from Miss Peace's house through the neighborhood. I would see McDonald's or Burger King, and I would point and I would say, "Mama, can't we go there?" And she'll say no. She said, because if we go, we're gonna have to go around the back door. So I never had McDonald's or Burger King until probably 18, 19 years old. So we would head out of the white neighborhoods and by Singer Island, all those different places. Oh, while I'm thinking about that, we didn't go to Singer Island Beach where white people went. We went where Negroes were allowed to, and that was Jupiter Beach. And I'm going to tell you, that was a nice beach. I can remember that was the nicer beach because they had one side that was shaded and you could eat your food and everything. Then once you got tired, you went over to the other side where the big beach was, bigger than Singer Island and nicer. You have to drive out for a while. I remember we went out, my mom would make ice cream and that little handmade churning thing. We would have a ball. We lived out there. We lived out there, and it was just us Negroes, as they would say. And I'm trying to think another thing. Another place was Dairy Queen, or Dairyville, they call it. I know it's closed now because someone took a picture of it, and we would go there a lot and get milkshakes and other, you know, ice cream and dessert stuff. I can remember that. And where that place, it was just, okay, say if we was going into Lake Park, there is a railroad. So the Dairy Queen was like really close to that railroad. So once you crossed over that railroad, you were back in the Negroes area. And I want to say that first road, God, it's been so many years. It was some road, but you knew that was the first road of it starting, even as a child. Okay, once we got back home, we were allowed to play a lot, and I was a tomboy. I was a tomboy up to probably my 3rd or 4th grade, but my best friend's name was Leroy Brown. That was my best. He had his mom was my mom's best friend. But Leroy Brown, and if anybody was older than us, we addressed them as Mr. and Mrs. I never said yes ma'am or no ma'am. My mom didn't want us to, and I don't know if she had to say it a lot, but that was just something in our household. I know other people said it, but in our household, she didn't want us to do it. I don't know what the reasoning was. When older people told you to do something, you just did it. But that was my best friend. And there was Pat, there was Doris. She had about 6 kids, but her and my mom used to go over to West End, Grand Bahamas a lot. I almost lived over there. Almost lived over there. But let's back up because I want to tell you a little bit about the kids. We played a lot. We made up games. We were very creative. We swam in ditches because we knew how to swim. That's one thing they made sure, because we just had so many water holes around us. And then when we came in, like I talked about before, and we never played with any white kids. I can tell you that because they was never there. Also, I remember too, Miss Peace, Mom's boss, who she was a maid for, would bring clothes for her to iron. I do remember that. I do remember that. And I know that in our household, we never got it was food commodities at that time. And it would be like dried beans, peanut butter, beans, rice, canned meat. My aunt used to get it. But most people didn't get that. You know, a lot of people think that, you know, Negroes, they just all got it. My mom worked hard. And all the people in my neighborhood worked hard. They had big families. Miss Turner, she had a lot of kids. She worked hard. I can't remember a man being there until Miss Parker, because it was a new neighborhood growing. And Miss Parker, they moved in. I don't know if she was a nurse, but she moved in. We didn't play with her kids that much. And Mr. Thompson, he stayed next door. And he was a postman, so that was a big thing. His wife was a teacher. I didn't know that. See, kids don't know a lot of things about different people. But I can remember that they had the nice yard in the neighborhood, the nicest of yard. I can remember that. We all had big yards. Oh, another thing too, when I said about the yards, we didn't have like what we have now, the water system. We had like pumps and wells. Our water came from a pump, okay? And we didn't have, I want to say cesspools, but I don't think that's the word I want to use, but that's where all the, went. And it was a big tank in the backyard where that would go. A lot of stuff I had forgot about. But yeah, we drank pump water, and a lot of times that wasn't clear water either. I don't know what the white people were getting, but I know that's what we were using, was pump water at that time. And I think I'm in the second part in a little bit. But also outside in the backyard, there was a pump on the side. Then my mom would have that wash machine and the rub board that she would clean her clothes on. And we had that wash machine that had the little things that you press your clothes through, and it went through. And a lot of kids' hands got caught in that little old time washing machine. And I know my sister's hand got caught in there. That's how I remember that. But just think, when it's cold and then after you wash the clothes and run them through that little thing to get all the water out, then they go into a still big tub, and then the clothes go in there. Then you rinse them out. And just think, when it's cold outside, even though we were in Florida, that water is cold, ice cold is what it was. But, and then we would hang the clothes on the line is what we would do. And also the next door neighbor behind us, she had a pool, but it was an unfinished pool. You know how you get in the pool and it scratch it all up? It wasn't like, you know, finished off. I can remember that, but we still had fun in that pool. And I'm going to end with this part, was about the dinner. You know, we always, like I said in the last, we always had dinner. We were really fortunate, me and my sister, because we never went without. We always had. My mom made sure of that. And like I said, we would always have a dinner, a home cooked dinner. And like I said before, my favorite was fried chicken legs, white rice, black eyed peas. Black eyed peas is still my favorite. Good old chicken leg could be good too. And cornbread or a piece of bread on the side. I remember us having a lot of fish, fried fish. My mom loved fish and grits. We never had baked beans because my mom said she had too much of baked beans. We never had hot dogs. I don't know what my baby sister done maybe, but we never, because she said she was sick and tired of that. But she loved fish, and I know she must have had a lot of fish. Maybe not, because her dad owned the fish market. So I'm trying to think what else on the eating end. Oh, and then if I came home, my worst meal, it tastes good, but I just didn't want it, was chicken perlo rice. When I walk into, Mama, what's for dinner? She'll say, chicken perlo rice. I'm like, oh. And if you don't know what chicken perlo rice is, it's chicken back, chicken necks, chicken lizards, chicken gizzards, and rice. They cook it, mix it in rice with rice. I mean, it's good, but just to think of what it is. I remember eating pigtails, and then I stopped because I could see the little hair on them. They was good. No, I'm not going to say they wasn't good. But I'm going to end it right there because I think this is a good way to end this right now. But I always want you to remember that we were in a segregated neighborhood. I was born into this life of segregation. We all knew where the borders was, and we made sure we stayed within those borders. And my neighborhood that I first grew up was with my grandma, and then we moved, and then we found other friends. You made friends really, really good at that time. So another thing popped in my head, because I don't want to forget, and that was about, because I'm going to have to relook at this to remember what I told you, was the mosquito trucks used to come out with that spray, and we didn't know it was dangerous. Kids used to run in behind them trucks. I remember sitting on the steps, so you know I had to be inhaling some of that, right? And also our road was not paved at all. It was not paved at that time. It didn't come till years later that, you know, stuff started happening a little bit in the Negro neighborhoods. The main streets were paved, but our streets weren't paved. But anyway, I'm going to end part 2 here, but I really did want to come back because my sister said that I really glossed over it. And the third part is going to be a goodie. So you need to come on back and you need to see what the third part is about. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Please. And the ones that subscribe, please like and share. And like I say, I had to bring my... that's good. But I want you to have a great evening, day, night, whatever. And don't you hear that? Do you hear that? I hear your kids. I hear them talking, Mama, where you at? Why you got that glass of wine over there? So I'm going to let you go back to reality. I probably hear your husband too calling. But I am Betty J. Gathers, daughter of Jean Grey, and I will be back with that part 3, and I will see you again.